Welcome back to the Grief Mentor podcast, and this is your host, Teresa Davis. This is part 5 of our 5-part Easter series. Friends, if you've been listening to this series, I pray that it's blessed your heart in a way that you may not have experienced before. This time of year can be very difficult for those of us that grieve our children. Spring brings a sense of renewal, and often we feel everything except renewed. So I pray that this series has rooted and grounded you in truth, which was my goal, which is always my goal as your grief mentor, is to root you and ground you in the truth of God's word. Because that's how we do this, ladies. That's how we keep taking the next step. So here we are at the end of this podcast series. Where does this leave you now? After everything that we've walked through, after the questions, the hard questions, the pain that seems to be never ending, after death entered your story, where does this leave you? When you wake up tomorrow, after your child is no longer walking beside you. Because this is where it gets real. Not what we believe someday, not what we hope for one day, but what is true right now. And friend, if we stop the story at the cross, if we stop the story at death, then yes, it would feel like death had the final word. But the story doesn't end there. There was a morning when everything changed. And if we're going to understand what is true for you today, we have to go there. If you're grieving the death of your child and you want the steps that lead to believing with confidence that life is still worth living, then you're in the right place. Hello, I'm Teresa, a grief mentor. That's been where you are, and I teach grieving moms like you how to navigate life after child loss. If you're ready to take a step of courage and build a solid foundation to live with hope and purpose, then I'm here to teach you how. Are you ready for what God has for you? Then I'm ready to teach you. This morning didn't look different at first. The grief was still there. The loss was still real. The silence of Saturday hadn't changed yet. The stone was still in place. And the people who loved Jesus were still carrying everything that they had just experienced, everything that they had just watched happen. From their perspective, nothing had changed. And friend, that's what grief feels like. You wake up and it's still real. Your child is still not walking beside you. Nothing about that feels different, does it? But something had already happened that they couldn't see yet. Because before anyone understood it, before anyone felt it, God had already moved. The stone was not going to stay in place. Death was not going to hold, and the grave was not going to win. The resurrection is just not a moment we celebrate, friends. It's the moment everything changed. In Matthew 28, the angel said, "He isn't here. He is risen from the dead." That wasn't symbolic, and it wasn't a metaphor. That was victory. And when Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? That changes everything. Because when Jesus rose, death did not just get interrupted. Death was defeated. It lost its authority. It lost its final say. It no longer had the power to separate, to end the story, or to hold what belongs to God. And that matters for you right now. Because what you are experiencing feels like separation. It feels like something's been taken and cannot be restored. But the resurrection tells a different story. What looks final is not final in God. What feels lost is not lost in Jesus. What feels like the end is not the end of the story. So where does this leave you right now? Not someday, not in heaven, but here, in the quiet, in the reality, in the space where your child is no longer physically with you. It leaves you here with this truth. Because Jesus rose, death does not have the final word over your child, and it does not have the final word over your story either. What happened to you is real. The loss is real. The absence is real. Nothing about this minimizes that. But the resurrection tells you that what you are experiencing right now is not the end of the story God is writing. Your child is not held by death. Your child is held by the one who walked out of the grave. Let that sink in a minute, friend. Because one day your child's going to do the exact same thing. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead is the power that is holding your child right now. It's the same power that's holding you right now. So if your head feels low and your pace feels like you go 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, if this still feels overwhelming, that does not mean that we are without hope. It does mean that you are walking through something real, but you're also holding on to something that's even more real. Tony and I just had the opportunity to go to a facilitator's retreat for a while we're waiting. And one of my big takeaways from that retreat is that we don't move on. We hold on. Because of the resurrection, you're not abandoned. Your child is not lost. And death did not win. And friend, this is where we leave it. Not with all the answers. Not with everything resolved. But with something strong enough to hold on to. Because Jesus walked out of that grave. He defeated death. He is alive. And whether you realize it or not, your child is still very much alive. They just don't have a physical body. And because Jesus lives, death is not the end of your child's story. And it's not the end of your story either. May the God who holds your child in his arms hold you as well. May you feel those arms around you this Easter season. May you walk into this Sunday with your head held high, because hope is your anchor. Hope means you're going to see your child again. Hope means that your child is just on the other side of the veil. And friend, the way we keep putting one foot in front of the other is to literally wrap our arms around Jesus and hold on. And that's all I have for you today. So until next time, take care.